I would like to call the January 10th, 2024 regular meeting to order. It is 5:30 p.m. There is a quorum present. Notice of this meeting has been posted in a time and manner required by law. Mr. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Cliff Williams. Present. Scott Carson.
Present.
Charles Perry. Present. Mr. Kyle Hagemeyer.
Present.
Ms. Paulette Traylor. Present. Ms. Nikita Lagway.
Present.
My name is Chad Jones. Thank you.
Perfect. So tonight we have 8 people who have signed up to speak during public comments. The board will hear comments from the audience only during the public comment portion of this meeting. The public comment portion of this meeting will be no longer than 30 minutes total. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board. Groups of 5 or more that wish to express the same viewpoint on an issue must appoint a representative to speak for the group, and then will have 3 minutes to present. Please respect the privacy of others. Refrain from identifying students, employees, and other community members by name. I will determine whether the speaker has attempted to resolve this matter administratively through resolution channels established by policy. If not, the speaker will be referred to the appropriate policy to seek resolution. Disruption of this meeting will not be tolerated at any time. Per board policy, the board does not respond to public comments. First person who signed up to speak is Larry Davis.
I'm here today on behalf of the children who were involved in the Willis High School basketball assault that occurred on December 5th, 2023. I am retired from the Harris County Sheriff's Office after 29 years, the last 16 years as a homicide investigator. I am currently a private investigator licensed by the state of Texas and the director of the Homicide Investigators of Texas, educational agency that teaches homicide investigation throughout the state. As an investigator, I have to ask, did anyone do a thorough investigation for only 3 children and my 22-year-old grandson involved in this case? Do we only go on the word of coaches? We don't investigate all persons involved and review the video before a decision? Did Willis ISD's law enforcement have proper safety measures in place that evening? Were any preventive measures taken by the district to ensure player safety? Who's being held accountable for neglecting our players' safety that night? I am truly saddened about the events that night. That led, the chaotic fight that led between educators and students that evening. I actually attended the basketball in Conroe, and there were several things that alarmed me at that game. One of Willis's coaches was in a jawing match with the Conroe coach, and it continued into an official step between them and told him to pipe down. I was so concerned about what was going to happen to my grandson that I left the stands to go down to make sure nothing happened in the handshake line after the game. I questioned the head coach's thinking in this whole thing. He knew that my grandson and a player on Conroe's team had an issue with each other, and he put my grandson back in the game with a minute left in the game with the same kid that he was going to have an issue with on the floor at the same time. In nobody's mind, that should make sense to anybody in this room. That's just adding fuel to the fire. When the game was over, my grandson tried to avoid shaking hands with the opposing team and only got upset when his coaches were trying to force him into a dangerously volatile situation. Sounds like my grandson was the adult in the room. Only then did tensions rise between the coach and the player. After the game, my wife and myself approached the head basketball coach about what the boy had been saying he was going to do to our grandson in the game, and I quote that the head coach said to us, we're good, and waved us off. Again, that's another great decision by somebody that's supposed to be taking care of our children. Not only did you have this going on during the game, but you had the assistant coach verbally fighting with the Conroe coach during the whole game. All this can be seen on the game film.
Mr. Davis, thank you for coming to speak. Our next speaker is Joyce Davis.
here to talk about the fight with the basketball coaches and the students also. I want to know why the 24-hour rule was broke instead of engaging with the students. I can tell you why, because they were looking for a fight. One coach is holding my grandson's back at the time of the initial assault. The first initial assault can be clearly seen coming from the basketball head coach and landing a punch to the face of our oldest grandson. The head basketball coach threw the first punch. The person that has the right to protect himself and his brother has the right to protect his sibling, especially while Willis did not protect anyone's safety after this basketball game at the school. The head coach hit first, and after arguing for almost 3 minutes, set down his backpack, adjusted his pants, and squared up before landing the first punch. Yet we only arrest the children. The assistant coach, who has a criminal record of assaulting a family member, is then seen on the district video surveillance stealing a phone and putting it in his own pocket during the altercation. That is theft. Yet he has no repercussions to the day, still shows up for work to be around children every day. What world we live in where we have our school boards and administrators set up our children for epic failures? These so-called leaders have violent criminal backgrounds, and no one gave any of the coaches in charge a second thought that night. Just arrest the kids based on the word of criminals who just got done fighting the children. The total failure and injustice is not only more poor leadership from Willis ISD, but downright sloppy police work. Shame on your district security officer for once again failing, and shame on Montgomery County Sheriff Department for not doing a full investigation to find out the truth. Not one is harder on my children than me, grandchildren, but what I will not stand for the school district to completely destroy a child's life when they themselves are equally, if not more, at fault for all this. Shame on Willis ISD for hiring teachers with criminal backgrounds, and shame on Willis ISD for lying to the media about my grandchildren and the truth of what really actually transpired that evening. I demand Willis ISD do the right thing for all involved. Every single one of those basketball coaches should have already been fired, but I demand they are gone after today. I even question the board, athletic director, and the HR who would even hire such individuals to be around children. Anyone who knows my husband and me know our integrity. We're not liars, and this school is at fault at least for the negligence of security of the children and protection from criminals, along with lies to the news media. What should have been the best year of my grandson's life, his senior year, will never be ever ruined. He went from a football playoff game on Friday night, went to a basketball practice on Saturday, played in Tuesday's night game, and was made player of the week on Max Prep and being arrested on Friday night.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Our next speaker is Sunday Shibley.
Thank you. Ready? Okay. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address you today. I stand before you as a concerned member of this community, seeking answers and actions regarding the inappropriate content present in the book, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, within our Willis ISD school district. What will be the ramifications for a teacher requiring this as a reading assignment? With the passage of House Bill 900, there was a clear intent to remove inappropriate materials from Texas schools, making it a punishable offense. However, it has come to my attention that such materials persist in our schools, exemplified by a publicly shared post from a distressed parent, your constituent, regarding explicit content in a 9th grade honors English reading required assignment. Allow me to read the post from a parent. Quote, just want to let everyone know Willis High School has my 9th grader doing a reading assignment on a book that talks about bestiality, condom allergies, 3 ways, a bunch of sex, and throws the F word out consistently. Not sure what having them read worthless trash is going to teach them. Unquote. I implore our school board to address this issue promptly. What measures will be taken to rectify this situation, and what will the ramifications for the teacher involved be? The community deserves transparency and a clear plan of action. Furthermore, it appears that our school district is facing challenges in complying with the law on multiple fronts. Not only are inappropriate materials present, but there is also a concern about the promotion promotion of ideologies such as EI, or emotional intelligence, DEI, and CRT, which are illegal. Why are these ideologies being promoted, and what steps will be taken to rectify this deviation from legal standards? I advocate for a shift towards fostering critical thinking skills in our students rather than promoting questionable ideologies. Our unique culture is integral to our identity, and it is essential to teach it, especially with the diverse student population we have. Moreover, I am troubled by the reported decline in educational standards within our district. State learning standards have been lowered, yet Willis ISD struggles to meet even these diminished expectations. Only 24% of 8th graders meet these lowered standards. Shouldn't our priority be to enhance the student knowledge rather than settling for mediocrity? In conclusion, I urge the school board to address these concerns promptly and transparently. Our children deserve an education that respects community values, adheres to law, and fosters their full potential. Let us work together to ensure a brighter future for the students of Willis ISD. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shibley. Our next speaker is Robert Holder.
Thank you. I think under the law, that ninth grade English teacher just referred to the police. I don't know that you have to do it. I think that she will be prosecuted as of January 1st. But the feminization movement feminized education and tried to feminize boys. Then toxic feminists created metrosexuals, etc. But now there is a war on women. So now fewer than 23% of men aged 17 to 26 can even qualify to get into service. Now that we are in war, pending a communist destruction of this country, level 5 warfare, we know this, which all government schools are contributing to, including, as you heard tonight, who will defend this country? My grandson joined the Navy 6 months ago. He has yet to fire a single shot. You know, they're too busy teaching them correct pronouns and how to fight global warming. Not one shot. He's only had 3 hours of training with a pistol, how to clean it. That was it. We now have a new term in our vocabulary called innocent civilians. This did not apply at Dusseldorf or Tokyo or Hawaii or Nagasaki or Hiroshima or even the Twin Towers. With all foreign military from China, Iran, Afghanistan, and other countries, along with all the terrorists believed to have entered from Mexico, what do you think lies in our future? Since they have vowed to kill all Americans as well as all Jews, I doubt you will be considered an innocent civilian either. Fortunately, under Title 10 U.S. Code, all men aged 17 or greater are part of the U.S. militia and can be called into service. But since 1999, I think that is no longer limited only to men. I doubt the militia now is limited to only males over 17. We may end up repeating our country's beginning, you and me behind a tree. As evidenced by recent protests, our kids were not taught and therefore do not see it. Will they fight to protect you? Another great war, part of the communist fifth generation warfare, is man-made global warming or man-made climate change. And since they were never taught science, many subscribe to it. The brainchild of Stalin, in an effort to gain more control and extract more money from the people, which is happening greatly right now, is hugely environmentally destructive, poisoning Europe, as well as serviced by forcing slavery, yet many of our kids support it. Start educating so they'll see the danger that they are in. And maybe as you think about where we are in that danger too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holder. Our next speaker is Brittany Nixon.
Hi, my name is Brittany Nixon. My son was a basketball player who was arrested as a result of the fight between the basketball players and basketball coaches on December 5th, 2023. I have lived nothing less than a mother's absolute worst nightmare since this incident had occurred. My son was arrested after sending him to school on Thursday following the fight. He was taken to juvenile hall, and I was denied ever seeing him again until I saw him on that Sunday during designated visitation hours. He wasn't released until that following Monday. I wish this traumatic experience on no one, not even my worst enemy. This effect has an effect on my child and his future are still unreal to me. His mental illness, his future, and his education all completely up in the air, all while the coaches involved has no consequences. I'm angry with the school district, the coaches, the investigation process, and our players. I'm sad, I'm concerned, and I'm ready to fight for what's right for my son. I stand here today and I ask you to look at all the facts, all the circumstances leading up to my son being charged with a felony. And ask yourselves if you will sleep well tonight, knowing that my 16-year-old son is being charged with a felony and sent to JJAEP when trying to break up a situation that should have never been, he should have never been responsible for breaking up from the beginning. A situation that could have been completely prevented by elders in charge or by proper safety measures. My child has been expelled from school and his education has been put on hold until we can complete this appeal process. Everything in his life remains in limbo. Sending my son to JJAEP when he has no previous behaviors of this nature in his student records will only expose him to more devious environment. I cannot believe my son being sent to JJAEP is good for his future. How is this decision for JJAEP making him a felon in his best interest? How are these coaches, educators, and how can Willis ISD justify hiring these people? They ain't professionals, they're criminals. There aren't people we should want around our kids influencing our children. I'm here today to ask you to please consider the adverse effect that this will have on my son, my child, and my 16-year-old student, and your 16-year-old student.
Thank you, Ms. Nixon. Our next speaker is Arnisa Harris.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking regarding the basketball fight with the coaches that happened on December 5th, 2023 after the Comer game. Just as we give our leaders second chances, we should give these students a second chance. Don't send our children to JJAEP or allow them to become felons when y'all let felons guide them to begin with. Where was our district administrators that night? Where was Montgomery County Sheriff's Office with the Willis ISD school security on duty? Y'all arrested a 16-year-old student days later. He's seen in the video standing on the outskirts of the coaches for 3 minutes as the coach argued with the other player for 3 minutes. And then when the coach decided enough was enough, he threw the first blow. And the fight started. The 16-year-old that is charged with a felony was seen frantic and panicking as his friend and his coach, who he once admired, were at blows. Not until well after the fight started did you see the student who is facing felony charges throw his hands up as a bear hug and try to grab and attempt to break up a fight. Never was his fist closed, never did he throw any punches, never do you see him attacking anyone, only attempting to break up the fight. And you may ask where the coaches were, why did he have to break up the fight? Probably because the other coaches, the other assistant coaches were too busy assaulting student and the other people around. With no regards towards the other students that they were supposed to be making sure were safe, but instead of trying to engage in the fight. I understand sports can be an emotional thing, but we shouldn't hold our kids to a higher standard than we hold our public servants. Under no circumstances should a Willis ISD employee instigate or engage in any fighting with kids. These coaches never call the police upon the initial argument that happened on getting off the bus. They've been telling these players They ain't about that life since the first day of school. The coaches wanted a fight, and he hit first, and nothing happened to him. A student that has never been in trouble his whole life, that has been in Willis his whole life, has been in sports his whole life, never been in any trouble in any schools, is now facing a felony charge. Every single one of these employees seen in the videos, the administrators who should have been there.
Time has expired.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Our next speaker is Shanta Harris.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about the incidents also that happened on the 5th of December. The basketball game was intense. At that point, the coach should have had some kind of protocol of what he should do. I saw the video, I listened to his statement, and he claimed that his life was in danger, but at what point? After the game, he stayed at Conroe High for 40 minutes, which that was a long time. But if you felt like that was intense at that time, you should have called security, you should have called the administrator, or whoever you needed to call. You should have called them at that time. You know, even when you pull back up to the school in your statement, when I say statement, I mean in the coach's statement. See, the thing of it is the wrong narrative has been put out. They put out that the kids did this and the kids did that, but that's not the truth. I saw the video. I know you all saw the video, and everybody done saw the video. I saw the coach's statement, and I saw the kids' statement. The wrong narrative has been put out on these kids. Now, I don't condone fighting teachers, or I also don't condone teachers fighting students. But when you're wrong, you know, you're wrong. The coaches was wrong at this point. He should have called for backup. I know we can say that now, but he have a protocol. You know, and the coaches that was hired, they have felony, they have aggravated assault felonies. You know, we have people that apply for a entry-level job and don't get hired for like custodian, child nutrition. They don't get hired because of their record. But these coaches was hired, and these offenses, aggravated assault offenses, it's less than 10 years. Now, I'm not saying the district can't hire them, but why would you want to hire them? And since the district did hire them, this is what you get. This is right here. My son, my grandson, was breaking up the fight. 3 minutes he stood in between the coach and his friend. 3 minutes. 3 minutes and 18 seconds, I think he stood between them. Then when the altercation began, he was grabbing, trying to pull the coach away. He was trying to pull the coach out of the situation. But see, the narrative that you guys got is that all the kids was jumping, and that wasn't it. That wasn't it. You know, the same narrative you guys put out on those kids, we need to put out on those coaches, and I won't stop until we do. Because those coaches should not be in it. They got on the bus, even after the altercation, the coach drove the bus home. He wasn't that, you know. See, it didn't go like the coach thought it was going to go, you know. Had he won the fight, the coach would have been, he's always talking about where he's from. Well, first of all, I don't care where you're from. You're at school now. You're teaching now. I don't really care where you're from. That has nothing to do with it.
Time has expired.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Our next speaker is Jessica Coker.
Hello, Willis School Board. My name is Karis Morton, and I am a cadet with Troop 107-113 from Brabham Middle School. Being a Girl Scout is one of the things I am most proud of, and it has allowed me to do so many new experiences, help my community, and make some really cool friends along the way. One of my favorite things to do in Girl Scouts is probably to socialize, because we get like 5-10 minutes at the beginning of the meetings to just talk. memorable moment is probably doing cookie booths, waving around signs, and just shouting, "Cookies, cookies." To get our bronze badge, we had to repair and paint a bridge at Turner Elementary School. So we did that. And on behalf of all the Girl Scouts and Willis ISD, I would like to thank you for making Willis ISD a place where girls can challenge themselves, be confident in who they are, and make our community and the world a better place through Girl Scouts. We brought you each some Girl Scout cookies as a little token of our appreciation for all of your support as Girl Scouts. Thank you.
Thank you.
The board will now convene into closed session for the purposes of considering matters for which closed sessions are authorized by Title V, Chapter 551, Texas Government Code, sections .071 through .084A. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, 551.129, attorney consultation regarding change order number 1, Willis High School Baseball and Softball Synthetic Turf Project 2022 bond. B, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551 and 551.129, attorney consultation regarding legal requirements concerning the purchase and sale of real property. Item C, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 and 551.129, attorney consultation regarding legal issues related to property and known project as Middle School Number 3 located at 7373 Longmire Road, Conroe, Texas. D, discuss teacher resignations and consider approval of teacher appointments, Texas Government Code 551.074. E, consider and discuss possible action items regarding the superintendent's recommendation to void contract with James Stewart and terminate his employment. It is 5:57 p.m. The board will now reconvene in open session. It is 7:29 p.m. Are there any motions from closed session? Mr. Williams.
Yes, on item A, I move that we accept change order number 1 as presented by administration, subject to the superintendent and legal counsel receipt of documents for item A.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Mr. Carson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Williams.
I make a motion that we accept the superintendent's recommendation on the professional personnel listed.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Ms. Traylor. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. I think that's, we have item B.
Move that we declare the probationary contract of James Stewart void and terminate his employment with Willis ISD effective January 13th, 2024 for failure to obtain a teaching certificate in accordance with policy DF legal. I further move that the written notice of the Board of Trustees voiding of the contract and termination of the employee be delivered to him as soon as possible, and the superintendent be authorized to take any additional steps necessary towards effective determination of the employee's employment with the district.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Mr. Jones. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. At this time, item number 5, information, Pledge of Allegiance, Hardy Elementary School.
I am very excited to introduce some of our students from C.C. Hardy Elementary. From 3rd grade, I have Colson DeFrancisco that will be leading us in our American Pledge. In kindergarten, I have Levi Puckett that will be helping us with our Texas Pledge. And from 5th grade, I have Braden Gels that will be coming and leading us in our prayer.
Please stand for the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
Now for the Texas flag.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, use this prayer to protect every single school in our district. Guide and bless the school and school board on making great decisions so can our school be safe and successful. Protect every family and child around the world. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Each of these students were chosen for their exemplary behavior in their classrooms and for being leaders within their grade levels. At this time, we're going to move forward with our Student of the Month. I have her teachers coming. I will let you know this child was voted by her teachers, and I am very ecstatic to introduce her. So at this time, I'm going to have Ms. Gonzalez and Ms. Lambert come in and introduce Rylan Hicks as our Student of the Month from C.C. Hardy.
Rylan is a great example to her peers by showing Hardy core values consistently in all areas of the school. She shows kindness to classmates and is a huge helper in the class daily. She is eager to participate during class and also loves to tell us about her experiences with her new baby brother at home. In addition, she shows academic excellence across all of her subjects. Thank you, Rylan.
Rylan, first of all, congratulations on being our elementary student of the month. We have a certificate for you, and we have a medal for you. And then best of all, we have a cup and a coupon from Whataburger for you. Congratulations.
Good evening, President Hagmeyer, Board of Trustees, Mr. Crow, sorry, didn't see you over there, and beautiful sweet Carol. We are here tonight from Lynn Lucas to present our amazing Student of the Month to y'all. Our student is Sebastian Mata. Sorry, gotta make sure our mama knows she's gonna come up. All right. I have a lot of things to say about Sebastian. His teachers gave us a lot of nice things to say about Sebastian. So we're just going to start by pulling this out. And every single one of these rings has, come on up ladies, has a word that represents what Sebastian means to us and to his teachers. So we wanted to make sure Sebastian knew how loved he was. He was nominated by 5 teachers at Lynn Lucas on the 6th grade. So this child is exceptional. Side note, we didn't want to tell Sebastian why he was coming tonight. We wanted to surprise him. So this sweet kid thought that he was in trouble and that the board was going to be yelling at him tonight. So when we finally told him, he was so relieved because he is such an amazing student. He truly embodies what it means to have Lynx pride. Every one of his teachers believe that he is always one that they can count on to be an incredible leader and a model student. And even when no one is watching, he will truly epitomize what it means to be great, which are our core values for Lynn Lucas. So thank you, Sebastian. You're amazing.
Sebastian.
You do not have to wear that for a picture.
In addition to that, you have a certificate and a medal, and a cup, and a coupon from Whataburger. Congratulations. I think this is so that they might come to that meeting. Come here.
All right, we're gonna take a picture.
Let's take a picture.
Come on, y'all. I'll get on the other side.
Go. Actually, Sebastian, Dr. Moore was just afraid that the board was going to yell at her tonight.
All right, item 7, standing informational and ad hoc reports and items. Items A, demographic study presentation, population and survey analysis. Analyst, apologize.
Okay. Good evening, President Hogemeyer, Board of Trustees, Mr. Crow. My name is Chris Poole, and I'm with Population and Survey Analysts. And I have Justin Silhavi and Tiffany Thomas-Rogers here from our office, and we are here to present a new update. We've done several projects for you guys, but it's been a couple of years, and you got a lot going on, a lot of growth going on, and so we're going to present our findings here. You have a copy of the report itself somewhere buried. I know you guys have lots of packages and Girl Scout cookies and things, but you do have a copy of the report there. Let's see if we can get this to work. So it's on. Okay, so just a little bit of an overview here about what exactly it is that we do, in case you're not familiar with it or it's been a little while since we've talked to you guys. We have to go in, anytime we do a study, we have to collect background data. And so we have to start, even with census data, we have to look around you, what's going on. What's going on, why would someone want to live in Willis ISD when they could live across the line in another school district? Of course, we have to study housing and economic data. And that's very important because most of your new students you're going to get is from new housing. We're not going to get the new housing unless we have a solid economic base. So that's, of course, a giant part of the project that we have to do. We study past and current student enrollment. We look at trends, but we also, most of your kiddos that are going to be here next year are here today. And so we geocode all of those students. They pop up like a little dot on the map, and you'll see that map here in a minute. And then we analyze that data in several different ways that is very useful to us. We generate projections that are district-wide. We do a low, moderate, and high scenario of growth. We normally use our moderate scenario of growth for all of our planning and everything, but we do want to factor in what might happen if we have a charter school open or if interest rates drop. We might end up on the low end or we might end up on the high end. And then finally, we take that information, all of everything that we've studied, and we dump it into little tiny sections. We call them planning units here. They're like little puzzle pieces, and then we can look at what that means for new facilities, because that's really why we're here, trying to be sure that we have all of the facilities and the teachers and the staff and everything in place for the students. Can somebody click to the next slide? There we go. Okay. So demographic study components, the very first thing we'll do, the first little section here is talk just a little bit about demographic trends. So we'll go to the next slide. This first slide is going to show us a map of the PEMS data for the Houston area.
Next slide.
Next slide. Can we go to the next slide? There we go. Okay. So this is a 5-year look at the change in enrollment in the area. Like I say, we have to start with what's going on in the region because that impacts you guys. This is PEMS data change from the fall of 2017 to the fall of 22. And of course, now we've gotten the fall of 23 and all that PEMS data has been turned in. But we can't access it for the entire state until probably April or so. So this is sort of 1 year removed. But you can see, thank you, that you guys are about 14th in the region for the amount of growth between 17 and 22, and that does include the COVID year. And you guys were one of the handful of school districts that still gained, I think you gained like 17 kids in that fall of 20 COVID year, but so many districts in the entire state lost student population that year. What's interesting to me about this, though, is always just the concentric rings of color. You can see all of that red and maroon sorts of colors that we see. We're from College Station, so it's definitely Aggie maroon there. On the outsides of the Houston area, you can see the loss in the central area as people are moving outward to the suburbs, and there you guys are at the top, just poised to have some of those additional students come in. This is what the enrollment looks like over the last 10 years. The district has averaged around 200 students per year in gain. It was, I don't remember off the top of my head, 200, yeah, just right at 200. It's been 2,193 since the fall of 2013. And so you can see, if you follow that trend just a little bit, I think you're going to see a little bit of an upward trend, upward ticking there right at the end. One thing that's real important and hard for us to get at, hard for anybody to get at, is your kindergarten enrollment. We can't knock on doors and ask how many 3-year-olds are in the house. They're not going to tell us, and they're probably going to call the cops. So one thing that we can do is we can get birth data by zip code of the birth mother from the Texas Vital Statistics. Now that's by zip code. That doesn't exactly line up with Willis ISD, but we take it and manipulate it the best we can using some population points and things. And we take the births and we move them forward about 5 years and compare them to your kindergarten enrollment. And so you can see how they've tracked along. You know, some ups and downs, and COVID is in there, and so, but generally they've tracked fairly closely together. And so you can see over the next 4 or 5 years, we see an upward trend as we would expect to see in a rapidly growing district like this district is. So we'll move on and talk a little bit about the students that I mentioned earlier, past and current students. I said that we geocode the students, and so at this point we've geocoded probably 6 or 7 data sets, or maybe 8 or 10 at this point, data sets for the district. And I don't always show this map. This is what the students look like, and then we take them and analyze them from there. But I think you could actually see a lot here. You can see in the maroon dots is the 2020, and then the green is 23-24. So where you can see the green is where you've had that new growth. That's new kiddos that have moved in the last 3 years. And so it's we have someone that does hundreds of thousands of these geocodes every year, and she's very, very good at it, really trying to track down every child possible using a half a dozen different data sources. So we feel like the data there is very good. And we take it, and one of the things that we do with that is we measure the ratio of students per home. And so you might think that there are 2 kids in every house. And there may be, but they're not all enrolled in Willis ISD at one point in time. I've got 2 kids. One's a junior at A&M, one's a senior in high school. And so I'm about to count a 0, even though I've got 2 kids. And so in reality, the ratio of students per home is a 0.35 here, and that's actually quite low for a lot of our suburban districts. This does include some RV parks. I think you guys are impacted probably by the lake homes that are around. But that 0.35 isn't important. It's a single number, and we almost never use that number. That is your average today. If you know absolutely nothing else, you may say that 0.35 students may be in any one given home. But it varies widely. You've got a lot of subdivisions that actually have 0 students in them, and you have some like Lake Conroe Bay and Oakwoods that are around a 1.2 students per home. And so what we have to do when we're doing our projections is we have to project not only the numbers of homes we're expecting and where and when, but we have to also project the ratio of students that we would expect in each one of those. We're not just going to apply 2, we're not going to apply 0.35, we're going to try to look and see these homes look like these other homes that we have data for. And so that's how we apply a ratio to try to get at the accurate number of actual students that you're going to have. Multifamily, I know, is a lot less of a big deal for you guys. Its average is a 0.27. That ranges anywhere from about 0.04 to 0.40 students per home. And then one final piece here before I hand it over to Justin to talk a little bit about housing. Charter schools and private schools and homeschool, all of those things are impacting every single district in the country, certainly every single district in the state. And I remember when charter schools first became a thing, we thought, yeah, this is going to be an annoyance for our data, and now we have someone that I swear we could hire 3 people to do nothing but study charter schools. We can get some data for charter schools from TEA, but it is quite masked. A lot of the numbers are small, and so they hide a lot of the numbers from us. And so we spend an awful lot of time trying to unmask that and work backwards and try to estimate how many students are in each one of those and how many come from Willis ISD. We estimate, and then we contact a lot of the charter schools, and we contact as many private schools as we can that we think may have Willis ISD students. For charters, we think there's only about 167 students that you're losing right now to charters. You can see on here in the red dots are private schools and the blue dots are charters. And so if a new charter were to drop into the middle of Willis ISD, you would lose students to it, certainly. Most of the time we see students that are in charters from either right around where that charter is, they don't provide transportation. Or it's a lot of times along a transportation route where mom or dad may go to school and take them, and you think, why is this child enrolled in a charter school 25 miles away? It's because it's on the way to work for mom and dad. So at this point, we've done as much studying as we can. We don't see it being an impact much for you guys right now. It always could be in the future. We do have one high school that is adding some space in the Conroe ISD area, but we wouldn't expect it to pull more than about 15 kids from you all right now. And with that, I'll hand it to Justin.
Good evening. It's nice seeing you guys again. Are there any new board members in the last 2 years?
Yes.
1 or 2? Okay. I'm just going to real quickly go over kind of our methodology for our housing assessment. So we don't just look at what's happening today. You know, we know what's happening in Woodland Hills. We know what's happening in any active neighborhood, but we want to look forward. So when we do a housing assessment, we're looking at what's active on the ground today. We actually have an employee who goes and drives, who tries to figure out how many slabs are being poured today. We talk with developers to understand what's coming. We talk with the city, we talk with other officials and developers to know what's in the pipeline. We also look at who owns land, how many investors are here. We want to see what could be built in the next decade, because we do project out to a decade. So we know that what you have on the ground today will build out. So what's next? So as we move forward into the future, we also look at the economy. And so we know right now the mortgage rates have increased quite dramatically over the last year or so. They've been leveling out around 7%. Some builders are able to now get, they're kind of working with homeowners, and we're seeing a lot of people being able to get a 6% mortgage or so. But for every 1% increase, that's about $200 added to your monthly cost. That table's down there. But one really good thing about this slide that I want to show you is that balanced market table. A couple of years ago, for every home sale, or for all the homes on the market could be sold in about a month and a half in the Houston metro area. That's now over 3 months. So we've increased the time that all homes could be sold. A balanced market is considered 6 months. We haven't been there in decades. We've been underbuilt for a while. But we're getting closer to that 6 month mark. So homes are still selling. That's my point. I could have said that. A couple of highlights here in Willis that kind of set you apart. As Chris mentioned, the ratios of students per home is quite low. That could be attributed to Lake Conroe. You have a higher retiree population here. You even have one development, Chambers Creek, that is now solely devoted to seniors 55 plus, 3,000 homes. That broke ground a couple of years ago. You have these estate lot subdivisions coming on, Republic Grand Ranch, 5,000 acres, 2-acre lots. Those are also geared toward retirees for the most part. We have build-to-rent communities popping up in the southern part of the district. These are kind of a newer phenomenon. Build-to-rent is basically, they look like single-family homes, but they're all rentals. And so you're going to hear that term more and more pop up. You've got 2 now planned in this district. As I mentioned, you're a retirement hub. And also, we now are starting to see a lot more apartments. The League Line Corridor has 3 now under construction. So that will start appearing in the 45 corridor as we move forward. These are all things we have to consider. It's not just single-family homes. There are a lot of developments in this district. Chapter 3 in the report shows you all of them. There's an appendix that has a table showing you projections for every single development. We are only highlighting a few here. These are your top 5 single-family developments over the next 10 years. Woodland Hills, of course, by Howard Hughes, tops the list. It's still in its infancy. There's an entire southern section south of 830 that will actually probably get going in the next 2 to 4 years. Republic Grand Ranch, I mentioned, that's those 2-acre lots, way far in the northeast part of the district. Moraine Ranch, that's now going right here in Willis off 45. Camillo, formerly Academy Development, is now building Ridgeland Hills in Willis as well, or right outside Willis. And then there is a large tract in Conroe in the far southwest part of the district that has a MUD now planned for a developer to come in and build housing. It's half in Conroe, half in Willis. There are a lot of other tracts available. They're all outlined in the report and on your maps. These developments have the most single-family housing. A lot of them I just talked about. But of your top 10 developments here on this map, 6 of them have no homes in them today. 3 of them just got going. So that's how new so many of these developments are. If we go to the next slide, I want to just show you in the far top left corner is a 1-year projection for housing, broken up by planning unit. It's a hotspot map. Each map shows you another 3 years of development. So you can see that bottom right map there, that's showing you the 10-year projections, the hotspot in 10 years for single family development. Most of it's concentrated west of 45 or in the 45 corridor. But we're starting to see a lot more development also on the eastern side of the district. A lot of that's larger lots, won't be as dense. But in that southeast part of the district, off 1484, we're starting to see some developments pop up. So that's another area to watch. When we're talking about rental communities, I mentioned some new apartments coming in. In the next 10 years, 5,800 apartments are planned, or we think, we're projecting over 5,800. That's about 19% of your total housing projected. Build to rent consists of about 4.8% of the first 5 years of single family housing. So it's still pretty small, but it's substantial when you actually think about it. There were 0 build to rent communities just a few years ago. These are those rental communities. We have 1 currently leasing up off the league line, and then another 2 under construction. 1 just got going, Beckett, West Fork. Another 4 are coming soon in the next 5 years. So, and they're all concentrated in the southern part of the district and off 45. So in the next 10 years, we're looking at 30,240 housing units projected. That's anything from an RV to an age-restricted home in Chambers Creek to an apartment off league line. So that's everything. So we're looking at about 69% of that total single-family housing, 19.3% multifamily. Age-restricted consists of 7% of that total. That could be an apartment or a single-family home, but we want to separate that out. We don't project students there. And manufactured housing could be anything from an RV to a tiny house, which you guys do have here, and also manufactured housing. So there's about 4 to 5% manufactured housing in this district. You guys have a lot of different types of housing here, very unique. But we're starting off in year 1, for the next 12 months, with a total of just under 2,000 housing units projected. Of that, about 1,200 or so single-family houses. You've been hovering around 1,000 single-family homes being constructed every year in this district, the last 2 or 3 years. In 2019, you actually had fewer than 400 constructed. That's how quickly construction has picked up. We'll see this pick up a bit and maybe level off is what we're thinking. It really depends on what happens to some bigger tracts of land that are currently undeveloped, but we'll kind of wait and see. The higher growth scenario would assume some of these larger tracts that currently have no plans on them may get going, may ramp up. But don't forget, we've already projected housing in other pieces of land that may currently be owned by developers, just nothing's going on yet. So when we move forward and factor all this into how it will actually create student enrollment, we have to look at birth rates in the kindergarten class as well. Chris mentioned we've seen an uptick in births. That's true. She's not lying. Over the last couple of years, we've seen about 100 more births in the district than just a few years ago. So very quickly, you're going to start seeing that kindergarten class tick upwards. And as new homes get occupied, it'll actually increase even further. We look at regeneration in some of the older neighborhoods. If that is occurring, we factored that in as well. As Chris mentioned, no charter schools are on the horizon that would really impact the district. And of course, new housing construction is your main driver of growth. So all that gets put into our models. And what you're looking at here is our moderate growth scenario as the dotted line, flanked by the low and the high growth scenario. So currently we're sitting at about 9,000 students in 2023, 2024. That could increase by upwards of 10,000 students by 2033. You are at the point where you're going to start seeing that increase. The last few years, you haven't seen major increases. The housing just got going. There's always a little bit of a lag from when new housing starts to when you start seeing students. A higher growth scenario could mean those ratios of students increase. They typically do. Some of your developments are a little more starter home communities. It may take a while for those to have a higher student density. We believe it will happen. A lower growth scenario could mean, well, the economy slows or something unforeseen we don't know about. Or you have charter schools, as Chris mentioned, move into the district, which would not surprise me. No one wants to hear it, but it could happen. It's happening in a lot of our suburban districts. So a lot of things to consider, but the trajectory is up from this point forward. Again, here I've just outlined a few scenarios, but the moderate growth is really what we want to focus on, and it does assume that there will be no new charter schools in the short term. It also assumes mortgage rates will remain about the same, hovering around 6 to 8% in the short term. It also assumes that your kindergarten class will increase to over 1,200 by 2033. There's a couple of, you can read in the report what the low and the high growth scenarios assume, but I've mentioned a lot of that already as I talked about those scenarios. So with that, I'll hand this back over to Chris, and she'll talk about how this will impact your campuses.
Okay. Got just a couple of slides left here so that we can talk a little bit about the schools themselves. But one thing I did want to emphasize is the difference between geocoded or resident students and enrolled students. And Mr. Crow's nodding his head there because he knows what I'm about to say. When we're looking at all of these students and where they're coming in, we're looking at where they live. And that doesn't necessarily, or where we think they're going to live. That doesn't necessarily mean that's always where they're going to go to school. You guys have quite a few students that are transferring, like, out of a couple hundred out of this school and a couple hundred into this school and that sort of thing at the elementary level. So we consider anybody that is not attending school in the zone that they are living in, that they reside in, as a transfer. So it can be a program, it can be a faculty member, taking their kid with them to school, that sort of thing. There can be lots of different reasons. But what the numbers that you're going to see here are mainly geocoded students, but we have to keep that transfer student number in mind. What we do is we have the data divided into planning unit for anybody that's not familiar with this. It's sort of our organizational tool, and it's referenced throughout the report. It's the way we organize all of the data. We can't organize it at the street level. We would all be crazy. And so we have these planning units that are just either subdivisions or they're parcels of land in subdivisions, and they include some apartment complexes and things. And for each one of those planning units, we have the number of students that we're projecting by year and by grade group. And so they're just puzzle pieces. They fit inside your current attendance zones. We can take your current attendance zones that way, break them apart, put them together in all these different ways. And so that's how we do long-range planning with the district. So the map here shows geocoded students, like I say, because you do not have 878 students at Parmley, for example. You have 225 students that you're losing out of that, whereas you're adding 203 students into Canaan when we're looking at how many kiddos live outside the Canaan zone and how many actually then are transferring in. So the thing that is interesting on this map is less the number itself, because that's not going to tell you how we're actually enrolling students. But what is interesting to me is the magnitude of growth between 24 and 28, or from 24 and 33. And you can see in so many of these situations, if you remember actually Justin's hotspot map a little while back, by the end of the projection period, we're looking at hotspot everywhere. The whole district is one giant hotspot. And so that's how you can see that Parmley, for example, we're expecting in the 10-year projection period could potentially double. So that means you could fill another school like Parmley in Parmley's attendance zone. And so that's something that's just what you look at here. I know you guys have another elementary school on the way, and so all of this will change. So we're just going to hit sort of the high points here. This is the same series of numbers. Looking at all of these over time, you're looking at basically everybody is at 1,000 students or so or more by that 2030 or 2031 spot, with all of the schools having between 700 and about 866 as a capacity figure. What I've highlighted in yellow, though, as I mentioned, transfers and that being a big deal, and you've got a lot of kiddos at the elementary level transferring. The yellow is what is highlighted there. It's highlighting the year in which that facility is projected to be over 120% of capacity, including transfers. And the reason I said 120% is that most districts that are growing have to use portable buildings or temporary buildings. Everybody would love not to use them, but if you're growing rapidly, you can't build a school when you have 4 extra kids walking the door. And so we use those temporary buildings. However, at some point in time, you have those temporary buildings, you still got to bring them inside, you got to feed them in a cafeteria, you got to send them to the library, and you begin to run out of common space. And so a lot of our districts use 120% or so. It's not a hard and fast number, but that's sort of where they're looking at. We got to have something else on the ground to adjust here. This does not include, of course, the new elementary school you're talking about. And so really, your long-range planning stuff at this point needs to sort of wait until that attendance zone is set for that new school. How many of the facilities do you have? How many of your current facilities are going to be relieved by that new school? We know it's going to hit, Lagway and Metter, but are we going to tweak anything else along the way? That's what we'll have to wait and see. But what this does show you is basically a potential doubling of the elementary school population over time. And so therefore you would need to sort of double the facilities, would give you an idea of what we're talking about. And again, an awful lot has happened in the last couple of years, all of these sort of global things that we're living through here. And so all of those similar sorts of things could happen over the next 10 years. We would expect the first few years to be much more reliable than the last few years. But since it takes a while to build these schools and get them on the ground and find the land and that sort of thing, we like to look at where we think we're headed over the next handful of years, and then continue to come back and take a look at it year after year. Just here at the 6th through 8th grade level, you've got a lot fewer transfers, so it's a little easier to look at these numbers here. We're looking at, Lucas gaining about 1,000 students or so, and maybe 1,500 at Brabham over the 10-year time period. Same sort of thing here, 120% of capacity there is highlighted with those little yellow circles. Again, this doesn't count for the new school. If you have the third school come on and it's got about 1,200 students of capacity, then you're looking about 3,400 kiddos, 3,500 students of capacity, and you reach that point somewhere in the 2029 or 2030 standpoint where you would then need another middle school on the line. And then at the high school level, unfortunately, of course, they have to be dealing with that at some point. We've highlighted 120% there, including the CTE capacity. That's in the fall of 28. So on one hand, that doesn't mean that you don't have to make a big bunch of decisions about the high school today, but it takes 2 years to build them, and you got to get the land, and you got to pass the bond, and you got to do the site work and the planning and all that sort of thing. So we know that those high schools in particular take an awful lot of time to get on the ground. So with that, we will open it up to questions. Lots of work.
I've worked with PASA for a number of years, and one, I'm compliment them to the best in the state at doing this.
Thank you.
Worked with them in Katy, and they were in their rapid growth. When they give us these numbers, yeah, it could change. It is going to be in that range right there, and so it's what you've got to plan for. Notice I said you've got to plan for.
He keeps saying that, and he keeps calling me later and saying, well, now I'm in Willis, or now I'm in Ector counties.
Any questions for her?
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, thank you.
And I'll be calling questions.
Whatever y'all need.
Item B, Long Range Facility Planning Committee report.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Kristen Arnold, and this is Abby Holland. We are here on behalf of the Long Range Planning Committee. I want you to stop a minute and go back to 1988. I was a senior at Willis High School, what is currently known as Lynn Lucas Middle School. Dr. Jack Reeves was our superintendent. When I was at Willis High School, that was the high school. It's where 9th through 12th grade went. Our football stadium, Burton A. Yates, was where everyone played football. There was only one side, and at that time, the visitors just had a small area on the north end of the stadium. During that time, there was no Kroger, McDonald's, Los Pericos. Even there was no pizza places in town. Montgomery County Precinct 1 Commissioner's office was across the tracks in a small metal building. One might ask, what is her point? Well, times have changed. We aren't little old Willis anymore. Look what we have today. We have a Kroger, an H-E-B, more pizza places than one can count within a 2-mile area, a Starbucks, Dutch Brothers, Love's Truck Stop, Walgreens, CVS, and so much more. There have been 7 bonds passed since I graduated from high school, ranging from $20.5 million to $143 million. Today we come to you, the Board of Trustees, to listen, think, and vote on what the Long Range Planning Committee has been working on for months. This committee has met several times over the past several months, and there's a handful of us that have met more than 10 hours. There have been lots of emails going back and forth within the district as well as the committee members. The time is now to approve the following. Prop A, Willis High School 9th grade addition, a transportation center, and a parking and traffic mobility improvements. Prop B, the athletic complex and community room. Prop C, an aquatic center, and Prop D, a student activity center. Before each proposition is discussed, remember this. Oftentimes you hear the public talk about why should I vote for the bond or why I shouldn't vote for the bond. Why shouldn't you? Why don't our kids deserve it? Our stadium is outdated, and every year the district hopes that it will pass inspection. Oftentimes people say, I don't need to vote for the bond because I don't have children in school. Well, at one time they did, and you wanted your children then to have nice facilities, not have overcrowding, and the up-to-date stuff of that time. And then you also hear people say, I'm retired, and why should my taxes, I don't want my taxes to go up. Well, if their taxes should not be going up, and also their taxes should actually decrease due to the homestead exemption that just increased. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go over an overview, some background information about the district. Right now, Willis has 12 schools, about 8,500 students, 1,200 employees, and 158 square miles that encompass Willis ISD. As you saw from the presentation before, growth is coming, it's here. We have to continue to be prepared. This screen, the next screen to me that's really important is the top left. Over $352 million have passed in bonds since 2015. So, that's huge. Just think about that. In 8 years, we've passed that much, and we're still needing to go forward. The next slide talks about the completed bonds projects from 2015. I'm not going to read that to you. People can look for themselves. The 2020 bond projects and what's been completed. The 2022 bond projects that are in progress. Now I'm going to turn it over to Abby.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for allowing us to present this information. I will tell you that the Long Range Planning Committee has worked tirelessly to present with something that we feel is going to move our district forward and is going to benefit our community, our staff, our students, and everyone that it encompasses. So, like Kristen said, we have met 7 times over the past few months, starting in August. We reviewed the demographics, from the enrollment information to the financial bonding capacity, tax implications, everything was reviewed extensively. We had, as you can see, there are several long-range planning committee members that were on here, including 30 Willis ISD employees, so it was a good, diverse group. This is how we started. We evaluated and studied, we prioritized the needs, we made recommendations, we put together a consideration list, and then now board action. And this hopefully, if this is passed, if you agree upon this, we'll get into some voter education and get it passed in May. Let's talk about the financial information, so tax rate components. We wanted to make sure that based on the needs and wants of the district that we weren't going to ask for too much of our community members that they would not want to stand behind that. So the maintenance and operation, there's a maintenance and operation rate, and then there's an interest and sinking rate. You guys can look detailed, more information at that, but let's turn to the next screen and talk about our tax rate history. I think the most important thing here, if you'll notice, is the percentage of change. So over the years, our tax rate has actually decreased. Current tax rate total is a little over $1. Is that what we're looking at? So we propose that when you look at the financial information for the bond capacity, you can see the tax increase at $150 million. There would potentially be a 2-cent increase, and then all the way down to $250 million at about 10 cents. I'm going to click through a couple of more slides. Let's go in here to the considerations. So as the group, everyone had a lot of different ideas, a lot of different needs, a lot of different wants that I've said before. We started out with, should we maybe possibly go for expanding the high school? Are we ready to have a second high school? What does the parking look like? Do we need a transportation facility, aquatic center, a new athletic complex? So after all of the consideration, we kind of got down to the brass tacks, and here's our recommendation. So our recommendation for May 2024 bond package would be a Willis High School 9th grade center / expansion to be on the current campus, a Willis High School parking upgrade, transportation facility, an athletic complex and stadium with community room, an aquatic center, and a student activity center. Let's go to the Willis High School 9th grade center expansion. This would be able to serve 1,200 students, encompass 2 gymnasiums with a cafeteria. You can see here from our drawing of the proposed location, it'll be a little bit more apparent when we get into a couple of slides down. But to use the current parking lot to create that, and then also add additional parking so we don't take up for that. So if you'll look at the next slide, this is the idea. Possibly putting the high school next to adjoining the 12th grade campus, 9th grade campus next to the current high school. And then it's kind of hard to tell, but the parking layout is drawn in and around between the expansion and the CTE center, at the back of the high school to the front. There's just some area parking that we'd like to expand in order to fit the high school expansion. It would encompass 87,000 square feet, 2 gyms, and like I said, a cafeteria. Next is the transportation facility. So the new transportation facility to secure and serve approximately 100 buses, which I think is a crucial need considering the bus barn that we have now, with 6 bays, offices for 12 staff, and a training room / break room. You can kind of see the preliminary concepts. Of course, we'll let the architects design a little further. Let's move on to the athletic complex and stadium with a community room. We are looking at approximately 8,500 seats is what we've budgeted for in our recommendation. That would also include the aquatic center and to be located across from the high school on the new property that's located at the corner of 830 and Highway 75. And there's just a little bit more of a detailed aerial view of that. The next one I think that we were all really excited about, this is a student activity center. It would include classrooms and media rooms, girls and boys locker rooms, offices, a weight room, a wrestling room, equipment storage, multi-purpose use indoor field. It would be able to support our Air Force JROTC space, baseball / softball area. The use is really kind of unlimited and would really reach a huge majority of our population of students. There is kind of a proposed area for it with a parking spot. I guess it would be kind of behind the current practice field. But we're excited about that. We think that that indoor facility will be able to host when it's raining, when it's cold outside, when we have 100-degree temperatures in the summer. It could host multiple clinics, and it'd just be a really good place for extracurricular activities. Next up, we want to talk about the aquatic center. So this aquatic center, you guys know that we went out for the last aquatic center and it did not pass, so we kind of made a couple of changes to this. We would like for it to have, it was gonna be a competition pool, providing use for student swimmers and divers, for a diving program, as well as community members for exercise and swim lessons. I think it was very important for our committee to be able to use this as a center for all of the community and not just Willis ISD. I think that was very important to them. It would be a 50-meter competition pool with a separate diving area, girls and boys locker room, storage, classrooms, and outside seating area. The idea would be able to host large swim meets when our students weren't actually practicing at it. Potentially could be a revenue driver if, depending on how that looked. But our swim program, it's a need. It's a need in our area to have an aquatic center. In 2019, Senate Bill 30 was also adopted, requiring separate propositions for the following: a stadium with seating for more than 1,000, natatorium/aquatic facility, recreation facility other than a gym, playground, or play area, a performing arts center or facility, housing for teachers, and technology devices. So it kind of made it to where we have to split these propositions up and we can't lump them all together, as you guys know. So this is where our 4 propositions come into place. For Proposition A, we would like to recommend for approval of the Willis High School 9th grade expansion and parking lot upgrades to support 1,200 students, a new transportation center to house 100 buses, and just some general infrastructure funding of $102,700,000. Proposition B would be the athletic complex and stadium with the community room. This stadium would have 8,500 seats at minimum, and that would be for $68,800,000. Then our next would be Proposition C, which would be our aquatic center for $19,600,000. And then lastly, Proposition D would be that student activity center for $27 million. Now let's talk about the tax impact of the proposed bond. With all of the bonds that all the propositions that we just talked, we are thinking that the maximum tax impact would be 7.9 cents. It was really important for us to keep that as low as we possibly could. We felt like this was conservative considering the growth that we're going to have in our area, and we're hoping not to have that. But it is a 7.9% implication possibly. Potential timeline we're looking at on the 9th grade expansion, the summer of fall of 24 would be the design. In 25, construction begins, and we're hoping that that expansion will be opening for a fall 2027. Transportation center, again, start designing in the fall. Spring construction in 25 begins, and hopefully in spring of 26 that opens. The athletic complex and stadium, again, designing in 24, summer of 25 construction, and then spring of 27 is when it would potentially open. Aquatic center, designing begins in 25 with the fall construction in 25, and then opening of spring 27. And last but not least, that multi-purpose gymnasium, which is what we're calling a student activity center, designing that in 24, construction in 25, and opening in 26. So we feel like it's a pretty good trajectory of the timeline of the needs that we will be met. I guess the next steps, important dates are Election Day is May 4th. Deadline to call for election is February 16th. Early voting begins April 22nd. And do you guys have any questions for us? No questions?
Any questions?
Okay.
They go do a great
Okay,
job.
so if you're here and you were on that committee and you attended at least 2 meetings, would you please stand up? I just want to say thank you. In 2015, I served on that committee, and that's how I got to here. So hopefully one of you will have the same experience that I have. So congratulations. But honestly, we do appreciate the effort that y'all went into, because I can tell you from watching 2020 and 2022, we did not have the effort and the participation that we had this year. So I just want to say thank you, because it makes our job a lot easier knowing the effort that y'all put in. So I appreciate it, and all of us do.
Thank you.
Item C, Hardy Elementary update, Solution Tree Services.
President Hagermeyer, school board members, Mr. Crow, and Ms. Rogers, thank you for this opportunity. First of all, thank you for us having the opportunity for Solution Tree to come. We've participated in about half of the program with our coaches and our PLC coach. So I'm going to highlight some of the things that we've done. Some things we haven't been able to fully implement because the coaches came right before Christmas break. So I want to explain to you what we're doing and how we're monitoring to make sure that we're actually seeing progress from what we're getting. So if we want to look at the next slide. So as I told you when I came, our staff was able to participate in a survey. These are our survey results. And really we wanted to look at, okay, where is it that we need to focus? 3.0 and higher is favorable. So looking at that, we knew with the scores that we needed to increase. We really needed to look at instruction and curriculum. So we really honed in onto those specific pieces in the survey. So the first part of the survey is instruction. So we went through each question and we had about 95% of our staff members participate. So we got good information from them, so I'm super excited. We honed in and we looked really at question 12 and question 20. Teachers plan based on identified standards for the content and grade level, and teachers received useful feedback in order to improve their instruction. Still all favorable, but we wanted to look at what is it that we need to do to help support. Question 12 is a little high, but we know based off of our results, we really needed to dive in. What was the misconception on that? Because we're seeing that we're still needing support on that content and grade level standards. Then in curriculum, we looked at number 27. They felt actually not favorable. They did feel like there were gaps in content knowledge between grade levels. It's something we had to focus in, and one of the programs we use is TEAC's resource. So really pulling in, we actually started that pretty quickly before our coaches came in, because we have TEAC's resource that actually vertically aligns our curriculum, and we've been working with our teachers to see where is it that that standard actually starts, and really hone in on that. And some of the teachers didn't realize it may start in their grade level. So we were able to see where did it start and where is it going. So we were able to hone in on that ourselves. So then we created an action plan. Our action plan was actually created with our guiding coalition. These are team teacher leaders that are part of helping grow in our campus. One of the things I wanted to make sure that our teachers were a part of our decisions. So the first goal is we wanted to look at assessment. One of the things that our teachers said is the students didn't clearly or really understand what they were working towards. So we focused on goal setting. We wanted our students to own their work. So on January 2nd, our guiding coalition actually led our teachers through learning on what we can do to actually do goal setting. So I am very excited because this actually went in place we do a campus improvement plan, and that coincided exactly what our teachers said last year at the end, and they're still seeing that need. So our teachers were able to get that from their staff. And then under goal 2, it was leaders, which coincides with getting more staff members to feel like they're being able to become more leaders within the school. So one of the things that we plan on doing is using our teachers as leaders, not just to do professional development, but also to use them as master teachers and coaches themselves. And we've seen a huge impact because they're within that. So just this piece that we got to do with Ms. Meadows, who is our PLC consultant, she was part of this as well. And one of the things that our guiding coalition agreed is that we have some master teachers that are coaches within them. So we wanted to grow not just leadership team, but our teachers within our school. And then the next one, like I told you, we really wanted to hone in was goals 3 and 4. So the first one was that all staff will grow in their understanding of differentiation, instructional materials, and resources to support student learning, then ongoing team collaboration and strategies. So these are our thoughts that we put in place. The guiding coalition is actually meeting, and we're gonna see where we wanna put those. We have done a great job of unwrapping our standards. We have gotten support from our district, and we're having our assessments from grades 2 through 5. So what this allowed, and this is from Ms. Meadows also with her guidance, is teachers to get down to the meat and potatoes. What are we teaching, and how are we gonna teach it? And that has been huge and impactful. So on our calendars, our pacing calendars that we do in our collaborative teams, is we are having teachers come and share strategies. How do I teach this? What is this gonna look like? What is it really asking? So we're really getting back to what teaching needs to be to help support not only our teachers that are master teachers, but our new teachers as well. Then we looked at, are we reaching the rigor of our instruction? So one of the things Ms. Meadows shared, we took pieces of it where we, during our data protocols, are really looking at these questions, but we're doing that backwards design first. We have our assessments. We're going in and saying, what is this question asking? What are the mistakes that our students may make due to the question level? Is there vocabulary that we need to support them? So it's really going back to saying, how are we gonna teach this? So then we had our coaches come the 2 weeks before Christmas. The first one was our RLA coach. She came in and actually observed our 3rd through 5th grade teachers. We wanted to split it up. So during the next day, during CPT time, we met with our teachers, our 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and she gave them very good feedback in order to support them. She really talked about the importance of think alouds. And what think alouds are in schools is teachers modeling what thinking is as they're reading, as they're writing, as they're doing math. And that's master's teachers at work, because we're teaching our students how to think. Then it's talking about the level one questioning. We're ensuring that we're not staying on the surface level, we're diving deeper so the students truly understand what they're learning. Also, she shared adding the student discourse, meaning are we gonna get them to talk a little bit more, and solidifying that gradual release. That goes for the teacher to we to them. Then on day 2, she observed Tier 1 instruction in K through 2. Since we didn't have her come back, she gave us some information to share with the teachers, so we were able to meet with them. For those of you who don't know Heggerty is utilized to help our students understand phonemic awareness. And she really talked about making sure we're fine-tuning, and it sounds funny, but we do specific hand motions. Our kids do a lot of movement that helps them connect to it. Also use some more growth mindset with student feedback. That was just something they noticed to help support even our youngest learners. And then ensuring that objectives are clear to the students and bringing it down to their level and having them own it. And then knowing the purpose by what they're doing. So that was the feedback that she was given, she gave to us that we were able to share with our K through teachers. I'm actually getting a survey back that our teachers did regards to how they felt these days went. And Solution Tree will be sending me that out. So what I love is Solution Tree is making our teachers have a voice and be a part of what they're learning. For math, and this is the DOK level, but a lot of us already had it, but she did share that with us. So DOK 1 is at a surface level, and when you dive deeper, you go to DOK 4, so that's depth of knowledge, so we can guide them in getting deeper understanding. Then math, this is probably one of my most favorite things. Math asks all the teachers to look at their next unit that they're bringing and going back to that mindset of how are we gonna teach this? So then she pulled up 3 things: concrete, representing, and abstract. And she asked them, where are your students at? We always say start at concrete and move to abstract. So concrete means I'm counting things. I'm using manipulatives. Representing means I'm using pictures. And then abstract is where I'm actually going to the number sentence. But it goes into talking about differentiation. Where are your students at? If they no longer need that movement, let's move them to picture. If they don't need picture, let's move them to the abstract. And it was a great conversation. I actually got a lot of positive feedback from our teachers in regards to this. And we're also talking about how can we move that into, how do we use it in reading? Because there are some ways that things are more concrete. Math is a little bit easier for them to connect to. The second day was the cognitive lift that she shared. We actually got this from her at the end of the day, and my coaches were able to do a training with our teachers in order to understand what that meant. And what that's doing is, traditionally, we ask a question, and then we go and teach. But there's some pieces that we're missing. We can guide our students to figure out what they're doing before we go to that reteaching piece. So we're gonna start with a higher level question. We're gonna prompt them, we're gonna cue them, and then we're gonna go back to that reteach. So we did some examples. I wanted to share what does that actually look like, because that's pretty high conception. So we gave them some examples. So for RLA, this is a 4th and 5th grade example. We might start with, what was the author's purpose for using blank text structure for this text? The student's kind of struggling. We're not going to go and show them. We're not going to go tell them. We're going to go, okay, how do we know that the text is written in blank structure? What do we know about this structure? So you're trying to guide them and still have them thinking at a higher level. And then next, going to a cue. Hey, let's take a look at the text structure anchor chart. So you're guiding them to resources, but you're still not giving them an answer because we're holding them to that high level. So for math, there were some examples that we have. I don't want to read them all, but this kind of gets you an understanding of how you're guiding them. As you can see, the cues kind of get them to look around the room and see what they have around them, because we have a lot of anchor charts, we have a lot of manipulatives they can use, and we're trying to guide them to understanding that without just telling them. This is our actual plan for this year. So like I said, we met with Ms. Rogers on December 6th and 7th, and Ms. Carly on the 11th and 12th. So we're going to be able to implement those things as we start our second semester. We will do a follow-up coaching on the 22nd and 23rd of this month. And then Ms. Meadows will also come back and look at those goals we set, those 4 specific goals that were set by teachers in order to do that. We have already shared these with our teachers, our whole class, or our whole school, and so everyone is on board with that. So how are we going to monitor growth? We have multiple pieces of growth, and we need to make sure what we're doing with Solution Tree is making us grow. So remember, I know one of the questions that was posed, what's different? We have focused on the 4 questions. We are now diving deeper into what is the meat and potatoes of what we're going to need to get to and really go to that rigor of instruction. That is what Solution Tree is starting to do, and really letting them see it in a different way. So there's several pieces. Last month, the board shared our interim. And as you can see, we had a lot of growth, but there's some areas we need to look at. We did notice a lot of our growth was going from one grade to the next grade. So you can kind of compare apples to apples versus apples to oranges. And so we did a comparative. On the left side is our English. On the right side is our Spanish. So you can see there's more green, but we definitely want more. For those of us, those that were on the board meeting last month, one of the things we noticed is this is 3 months different. So when you look at the previous year, those students took the interim in February, March. This year's interim that we have is actually from November. So already seeing that growth is significant, but it's 1 point of data. Because one thing that's different with RLA is we don't have where they do the writing. So then we look at other pieces. We are doing our map data right now. So how are we doing that? One thing I do want to do before I move on, we are tracking our teachers as well to see what the impact is for interim. For MAP, we're looking at our teachers of their growth. Did they meet exceeded growth? What's the difference? If not, then let's talk. Let's see how we can support you. The conversation is about support. We want to support our teachers so we can support our students. And then the other piece we look at for right now, for K through first, we're going to continue this. 2nd through 5th, we actually have a program through Eduphoria that will do all of this for us. But you can see here, this is actually a kindergarten classroom. And we have their CFA and CSA, but we also track it per teacher. So we're trying to see who has been the most effective. The conversations that happen in data protocol is, hey, and they're very much own it. Okay, I only had 80%, you had 100%. What did you do so I can go back and reteach? Or can you reteach my students? So the ownership is all. They're all of our kids, and that's something we focus on, is they're all of our students, and that means if I taught it better, I might go in your room and teach it, or I'm gonna teach you to grow you as a teacher to support. So right now, I can't say it's made a significant impact because we just got the coaching piece. But I will tell you that coaching piece, the teachers were very excited, but this is how we're going to continue to monitor because we want to make sure that the growth is really happening and this has been beneficial for our students. Does anybody have any questions at this time?
My question is, you focus ELA and math, anything in science. Was your science teachers included in some of your questioning meetings?
Yes, our science teachers were actually in there, and actually the abstract representational and concrete, they were a piece of that. Because they're also, most of our math teachers are science teachers. So yes, that's a very good question. Anybody else? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item D, Lynn Lucas Middle School update, Solution Tree Services.
Well, hello again, President Hagmeyer, Board of Trustees, Sweet Carol, Mr. Crow. I am so grateful to be here tonight to give y'all an update on how we're doing with Solution Tree. And there are a lot of things you're going to see about mine that are very similar to what Ms. Fossler just presented to you, except I'm going to give you a little bit of update about some upcoming Solution Tree events that we have going on too on our campus, coaching campus. All right, so there is a typo on this. I'm sorry, I sent this in before we did our the 2 dates on the 8th and 9th, so I apologize. But we have embedded coaching through Kristen Bordenaro. Our math coaching is Jennifer Wolf, and we have literacy coaching with Mark Onadish, just Mark, we're gonna go with Mark. On October 31st, we set up the Y with Kristen, and November 15th and 16th, she came back and we did our review of the ProPath survey, and we created our goals. The really cool thing about the 8th and 9th is that we did actually already do them, and I'm gonna talk to y'all about them just a little bit on the next couple slides. So with our embedded coaching with Kristen, she came out, she met with the leadership team the first few times because we really had to hone in on what we needed as a team to really get us to work together, because one of the things about Lynn Lucas is that we are all brand new to each other. The whole entire admin team is brand new. So we had to come together and figure out what it was that we needed to do to work through things together and talk about our goals as a team. So she really focused on that day on developing our internal capacity for implementing and sustaining the work. What were we going to do to help our teachers grow? How are we going to build capacity? How are we all going to buy into it so that everyone else bought into it? Then we're going to focus on best practices. And I'm really excited because Kristen is coming back next week, and we have some big plans that we're going to do. So with her coaching, since we have a math and a literacy coach that come, we're actually going to be able to take Kristen and we're going to go into some classrooms and observe, and then we're going to pull all of our science teachers and our social studies teachers, art and electives, and we're actually going to go over some of our goals with them and give them some focused instructional strategies relating to academic vocabulary and sentence stems. So Kristen's coming prepared with some tasks, activities, things that they can get their hands on, that they can do in the group, and they can take back to the class. So it'd be really cool to get that opportunity to work with them. So the coaching days, they included various sessions, like I said, with the leadership staff, monitoring of team activities. She's observed she got to observe multiple collaborative meetings where she got to see the work that teachers were doing and interact with teachers and discuss things with them. She got to coach some of our teacher teams. She's had a chance to do some observations, and then we have other meetings with the school staff coming up next week. Will you go to the next one for me? Did it freeze on you? The next one is on our content coaching, and I'm going to go by memory here. But content coaching is basically our content coaches, Mark and Jennifer. They come on various days. We're going to have 4 days each. They came yesterday. Here we go. They came Monday and Tuesday. Monday and Tuesday were really exciting days. You know, we kind of separated them out. On one day, we had 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The entire teams came, and they met with the math coach. And then the next day, 6th, 7th, and 8th came, and they met with the literacy coach. I might have that flip-flopped, I'm sorry. But what they did is they worked with those teachers on strategies that they can use. And then we went and observed the teachers in the classroom, and we formulated goals of how we're going to work with them in the upcoming weeks in order to move forward. So we used our ProPath needs assessment in order to help us gain a footing of where we needed to go. So our ProPath assessment, it did the same thing that y'all just heard from Ms. Fossler. It measured the perceptions of 5 school improvement competencies: school culture, curriculum, instruction, assessment, leadership. We had 76 of our 95 staff members participate, but all 54 teachers participated. So the only people who didn't participate were there were some paras who came to me and they're like, hey, I don't really know how to answer this really because I'm not in that group. And I said, it's okay, don't worry about it. But all 54 teachers did the survey and participated. So here's our data. And you can see that curriculum competencies was pretty low. But when we dug down deep into it and we really looked at what was going on with our curriculum competencies, the big one was the same one that Ms. Fossler just mentioned, where there's a gap in instructional knowledge. Well, teachers were thinking there's a gap in instructional knowledge, meaning kids aren't coming up being able to really read. You know, they're below level reading, or they're below level in math, or they're not coming with the skills they necessarily need in order to do the work that they're being asked to do. They might be some years behind. What the survey actually meant was, is there a gap in the curriculum as far as teach resource? Does it go along the lines of what it's supposed to? Does it scaffold? Does it build? Do they follow each other? So there was some misconception there, but we went ahead and we tracked that into our goal, because when we met with Guiding Coalition, that is what they meant. They meant that there's a gap in students learning coming up from elementary up through middle school. And we all know that that is a reality, so we knew that that was something that we needed to face. So we went through, and I can't tell you how hard it was. It took us 2 days to really go through the ProPath survey and come up with really good goals that we thought were really beneficial for Lynn Lucas. And it was taxing and it was hard. And by the end of the second day, I was just ready to go home and get under my blankets, because it was hard work. It really pushed us to our limits. So we got down to it and we figured out what our strengths were for instruction. Our strengths are, our teachers do plan based on identified standards of the content and grade level. They do meet the needs of our students and they are receptive to feedback. However, you can see where our challenges were. One of the big ones was the instructional model or framework is not effectively used. We have a district strategy implementation guide for literacy and for math, but it's not necessarily followed. You know, at the elementary school, it was a little bit easier to push in, but with only 45 minutes, it's a little bit harder for our teachers to follow the entire guide of the framework of how it goes. And that small group piece, like I told y'all before, is really missing out of secondary. And so that's a piece that we're really kind of honing in on and trying to get going and working through. So we also lack a system of support to ensure success for all students because we're not following the framework. It doesn't mean we don't have it. We just know right now that that was a weakness based on the survey. Instruction is not differentiated based on student needs, and that's coming from teachers. Like I told you, we had 80% do the survey, 54, all teachers did it, and this was an area of weakness according to all teachers. And it was really shocking. I did not think that teachers would say this, but they did, and they said instruction is not meaningful and not engaging to students. And I'm going to get back. I'm going to say something now that I was going to save for later, but if I tell you I'm going to save it for later, I'll forget, so I'm going to tell you now. But one of my teachers the other day in our coaching, I was talking to her after school, and she was like, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. She wants to do these activities where she gets the kids up and they get moving, and she's an RLA teacher. She's used to just standing up and presenting and delivering, and then the kids doing work on their computer. She got super excited. She's like, this is what I want, with the activity that they were doing. She's really excited to go back into her class and do it. So the literacy coach gave us some ideas, some strategies, some tools to use that the teachers can go back and make their classroom more fun so that kids are learning but not realizing they're learning. And then, of course, assessment data. We don't use that the way we need to. That is a weakness. We're actually going to be addressing that and talking about what we can do better, but we've got to get that Tier 1 instruction strong before really analyzing bad data will make an impact. So assessments. Assessments are evaluated for their ability to measure learning. We do have that. Our staff is doing that. That was a strength. And our school has a shared language around assessment. We really do all use that same language. But here are our challenges. None of us are adequately changed in assessment practices. That doesn't mean that we haven't been trained here. It just means that we're not all familiar with it. I'm not familiar with it at the middle school level like I should be, and a lot of the teachers don't feel like they were adequately trained. So that was just a weakness that came from it. It's an area of growth. It's hard to admit that, but that's where we are. The school's grading practices do not accurately reflect the learning of the students. It's A, B, C, D, or F, and we really are talking about mastering of an essential standard. So we looked at that. That's not something that we're really going to be able to hit head on with this process, but it is an area that we do need to eventually grow in. And students don't understand why they received a grade and what they can do to improve or grow. So it was really cool when teachers the other day started doing their goal setting with students, and students were coming to me and they were like, hey, I set my goal here, so if I meet that goal, do I get to go to my glow party? And we're like, yeah, let's do it. So it's really exciting. All right, so goal 1, instruction is intentional and engaging for all learners. By June 2024, that is what we're going to have. We will have 90% of our teachers at proficient and or gold standard on the Content 6. Now we say 90%, we would love for 100%, but we also know that that's a very lofty goal and probably not necessarily realistic, because we do have some teachers that are first-year teachers and really working to just grow in their teaching. So we know that that is we're setting it at 90, praying for 100, aiming for 90. Teachers and students will utilize academic vocabulary throughout the instructional period, and that is why Kristen next week is going to focus on that with science, social studies, and all of our electives, because that's an area that we're not seeing. And if we can get that academic vocabulary, the cross-curricular vocabulary going, our kids are going to grow. You know, we've said things like, you need to have a word wall, but we go into rooms and we're like, oh, there's no word wall. You need to have a vocabulary word wall. We go into rooms, there's no vocabulary word wall. So I'm hoping that Kristen will be able to give us some input, some advice on things that we can do. She was throwing out some strategies like the Freyer model. I'm sure you've heard of that, Ms. Traylor. The Freyer model for vocabulary, for academic vocabulary, using Marzano's language in order to really start to learn the vocabulary and giving teachers tools to get the kids to be more hands-on with it. So I'm super excited about what's coming next week. For this one, we're going to maximize our instruction. I went into a classroom last week, and yeah, it was the first day back, but I wanted to help a teacher because we had a tough situation that occurred, and there was a kid in that class that was having a rough time. So I went in there to sit in that class. But the bell rang, and it was a good 2 minutes after that bell rang that he got them quiet and said, okay, here's your warm-up. We wasted 2 minutes. That doesn't seem like a lot, but in a 45-minute time period, if you're wasting 2 minutes, and then he got the kids to work, right? He told them, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to get to work. And then I counted 14 kids not working. So we have got to set our expectations higher. We have got to use this bell-to-bell learning structure in order to target our kids. We want to target our kids so that we can get to small group. If we're not doing the warm-up in the beginning, we're not going to get to small group. We have to get our kids ready. And so that was one of the things that got focused on in our meeting these past 2 days is, what are you going to do right when the kids walk in? Like, you should have your warm-up on the board ready to go when kids walk in. Set that expectation that they know what to do. And we found through our walks a few model teachers that are already doing that. And so I'm super excited because we're going to use those teachers as mentor teachers and model teachers for other teachers to go in and visit between our times with Solution Tree. So teacher teams will utilize their shared instructional framework expectations. So when you look at the shared instructional framework, that is for reading, them making a connection, background knowledge. Then they're going to go in, they're going to teach, and they're going to model the lesson. And then after that, they're going to have some active engagement to really get the kids to do it. And then after that, a link to go back and say, okay, this is what we learned. And that's all a part of our district literacy SIG. So I'm really excited to see that start happening. And all of that should happen within about 15 minutes. So we've got to really get our teachers to hone in on that 15 minutes so that we can get to those engaging activities and the modeling of the lesson, or not modeling, sorry, the small group activities. Then our next one is assessment, because that is an area that we really need to grow in. If we can get that tier 1 instruction strong and we can get it good, then our assessment data is going to improve, but it's also going to be more reliable. So we will have meaningful, engaging, teachers will meaningfully engage during planning time by taking the CSA or the CFA in advance and being prepared to discuss. So our leadership team and our guiding coalition came together and we created a reflective tool. And so before they come to their collaborative meeting, they're going to sit and they're going to take the assessment on their own. When they take that assessment, they're going to go through a reflective tool. It's like 4 or 5 questions. Which questions do you like? Which questions do you not like? And what are some instructional strategies you're already thinking of as you read these questions? So we're going through that so that they can come prepared to their collaborative time to really talk about the assessment and then go straight into instructional strategies. And then of course we have goal setting for that targets their small group instruction. And we have teaching teams that will utilize the assessment planning framework, which is what I was just telling you about, the reflective piece, to review the assessments. So we got teacher feedback, and I was kind of nervous, you never really know how teachers are going to do when you have a PD session, but I asked them to do my own survey and give me some information on what they thought. And so I put this together. I threw this in the other day. I should have taken out the typo, but I threw this together the other day and asked Jamie this morning if she would please put this slide in for me. But the next 2 slides. One of the teachers said, I really like how and that's Mark, that's our literacy coach, I really like how he broke down the reading process. I feel like this is a great way for young readers to have really good discussions about text. He took a text and he did a close reading with them. And he really showed them how to annotate it and pull it through. Now, my teachers are very literal, so they were like, how are we going to do this all at one time? We're like, no, you break it up. You don't do it all at one time. Like, do a little bit here, do a little bit the next day, and you break it apart. So they were so like, oh, this is going to be great. One of the things they said is they want more time with the presenter. I thought that was really cool. They want more time with them. So, we've got Kristen coming out for 2 days next week, and then we already have Mark scheduled for March, and we have Jennifer scheduled for February 12th and March 18th. And we've already got our plans lined out of what we want to do. We've already rolled it out with the teams and the teachers. They're excited about it. They're looking forward to it, and they've been asking me, like today they were asking me several times, like, hey, what do you think we could do? You think we could do this activity, or do you think Mark would be okay if I emailed him? I'm like, yeah, email. So that's the other great thing, is they're very receptive to talking to us outside of it. Like, I spent a good 45 minutes on the phone with Kristen today talking about our goals for next week. So the other one is a teacher. Love that they are showing us instructional strategies. She said, I thought we were going to do like building our teams, and we've done that so many times. Like, we just thought it was going to be how to be a better team. So the fact that we're coming in and we're hearing instructional strategies, and teachers are getting things that they're really enjoying and that they want to learn, and they're getting activities they can take away from it, they're loving it. They also loved when the math coach tried to get me to math. I'm not a math person, so sitting there trying to get me to figure out how many servings were left over or didn't go into a bag when she was serving pizza, it was much. But I was like, oh my God, I can't do this, I'm not mathing. And she goes, but you are! Because I had all my manipulatives out. And I was like, no, I thought I had to solve it with like an equation. She goes, no, you did it with your concrete math right here. I probably just butchered exactly what she had me do, but it was an amazing activity, and the teachers loved laughing at me, so it was great. So 4 out of 5 teachers answered the survey and answered strongly agreed to this statement. I gained knowledge and skills to implement this professional development into my classroom. And I think because we did it in small groups and we did it targeted based on each grade level and based on what they needed, I feel like they really benefited of it. It's not like a normal PD where she just stood up and delivered. She actually had the manipulatives making them work. Mark actually had the passage making them annotate and do the work on it. Now this last slide, whoops, nope. That's the interim data, so you can see, I wasn't going to present that. I don't know what happened. I guess when I hid slides, they just stayed in, so we're just going to go through them really fast. But you can see that 8th grade math this year, like the same thing, you can see all the growth that they're doing in 8th grade math. You can see that reading is catching up, and so 8th grade is they're just blowing my mind with the work that they're doing. We've got work to do in the other grade levels, but you can see how great 8th grade is doing. EOC data. I'm really sorry. These were not supposed to be in there. Where's that last slide, Jamie, you know? Okay. I had all these in, and then I was like, no, I think they've already seen this data. Let me take it out, and let's just go straight to the other piece. But the last slide is really just feedback. It's what the teachers told me, that how they felt about the whole program. And so it was more, by the time I had done that one slide, more teachers completed it today and last night. And their feedback is what keeps me motivated to keep this going, because they're engaged, they're excited, they want to do it. Every single person in there said that, it's up, sorry Jamie. Right there, 13. I really did try to shorten it. All right, so you can see up there that the first question was, what is something you learned? What are some questions you still have about our work with Solution Tree? And the last question was, what other questions do you have? And I love that at the very end, one of the teachers said that they wanted more time with them, but one of the things they wanted was modeling for our current or upcoming units when we're on campus. Several teachers said none, I'm a fan. One of them said none. The one who said none, I'm a fan, was kind of on the fence on Monday. So she wasn't quite sure, but by Tuesday with Matt, she was a fan. So when she did the survey on Monday, she was like, I'm not really sure the purpose of all this. And then the next day, nope, I'm in, I'm a fan. So they're buying in, and they believe in it, and they want more of it. And I think that's what's great. So that is.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? I'm ready. Go.
Feeling good about it?
I feel great about it. I am so excited. Kristen coming next week, and the presenters are like, here's my phone number, here's my email address, call me. You need something, call. And they're not just giving it to me, they're giving it to the staff. So they're letting them reach out to them, and I think that is so cool that they are willing to be hands-on. And so if teachers have a question about something, they can reach out to them. They've asked me if it's okay, like they need my permission. I'm like, they gave it to you.
Well, whoever's nice enough to give me this, tell them I said the same thing to them. All right? Stay savage, not average, baby.
seat him. All right, that's it? All right. Thank you.
Also, just want to say congrats to the Washington Huskies on beating the Longhorns. All right. Moving on to item E, Safety and Performance Report. Item E, Safety and Performance.
It's a report item.
Okay. Item F, Financial and Bill Payment.
Report item.
Item G, Student Enrollment.
Report.
H, Bond Summary Projects.
Report.
All right. And then item I, Investment Report.
Report.
Perfect. We have a motion. Mr. Williams.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Mr. Carson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item 9, item A, consider approval of annual financial audit for year ending August 31st, 2023.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Board. Ms. Carroll. Now for the moment that you've been waiting for a whole year. I know, on the edge of your seat. In front of you, you have the audit for the year ending August 31st, 2023. I'm excited about this. I realize I'm probably the only one excited about this.
I'm with you, man.
First and foremost, I'm excited that it's done. It is a very long, tedious process, but even more importantly, I'm excited for what it represents. It represents a strong financial foundation for the school district as we move into a time where it's a tough financial season for school funding. So that being said, I'm going to introduce our primary auditor at Whitley Penn, Selena's there, Sarah, and she's going to present the audit.
Thank you, Gary. President Heckmeyer, members of the board, and Superintendent Crowe. I'm here to present the results of the fiscal year 2023 financial statement and single audits. We'll start off with going through the audit process. Am I doing that right? Oh, there we go. Okay. The audit process starts with planning, talking to your management team to see what has changed. We then move into the internal control portion of our audit, identifying the key internal controls. We spend a lot of time on payroll, non-payroll teams, information technology. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. Information technology, because that does affect all the different areas. We look at any cash receipts in the child nutrition department, and various other areas. We just don't spend our time in the finance/business office. We identify the key controls, test the controls, both over financial reporting and also over your major federal programs that we select each year. Then we move into the substantive testing portion of our audit. That entails vouching, confirming, corroborating, and performing analytical procedures, all in an effort to be here tonight to issue an opinion on the financial statements. The state requires that you submit your audit by January 28, 2024, and that you submit also a single audit with the respective opinions. So the opinions that you can earn, and notice that I said earn just because it is a very long process, worsen as you move from right to left. So an unmodified opinion or clean opinion is what every entity wants to earn. So I'm pleased to report that once again you did earn an unmodified opinion. We performed the audits in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and in addition to the generally accepted government auditing standards, because you do spend more than $750,000 in federal funds. We don't have any internal control findings related to financial reporting or compliance. As far as the opinion on the federal awards are concerned, we do apply the standards that are included in the Office of Management and Budget's compliance supplement, as well as 2 CFR 200, which is the Code of Federal Regulations. The total federal awards this year was $14.6 million, and this year, again, we tested ESSER 2 and 3, which you spent $5.5 million, and then Title I Part A, which totaled $1.5 million. We rotate the larger programs like child nutrition, Title I, and IDEA B every year. Those are the three large programs, and they have to be audited every 2 years. Title I Part A was due this year. You again have earned an unmodified opinion over these federal programs with no internal control findings over internal control findings nor compliance findings. Now, as far as your fund balance, there's many pages as you look at your booklet, there's many pages within the audit report. However, the general operating fund is of the most interest to users of the financial statements. So if we dissect your ending fund balance just in your general fund for the operating, which is your operating fund, that totaled $47.5 million. It increased by about $200,000 after you transferred $1 million to your self-insurance fund. So you had a $1.2 million increase. However, in order to fund those other funds, that transfer out was necessary. Now you have non-spendable fund balance within that $47.5 million related to prepaids and inventory. That indicates that you cannot convert that fund balance into cash. It is sitting in inventory or prepaid items. You have committed fund balance of $23 million, and committed fund balance means that the purpose is committed by the board, and only board action can uncommit and change that purpose. The assigned fund balance is $700,000, and that can be changed for purposes by management or the superintendent's designee. Unassigned fund balance is $22.5 million. Both assigned and unassigned fund balance is what is available really for appropriations, and we analyze that because TEA uses those two fund balance categories for TEA first rating purposes, indicator number 6. So if we look at your overall expenditure level for fiscal year 23, which we'll dissect here in a bit, that was $81.6 million. And what the three graphs show, the bars show, is that if you continue to spend at that $81.6 million level, you would need, the danger zone in fund balance would be $6.7 million or 30 days. The recommended, which is 75 days or 21%, would be $16.8 million. Your actual unassigned and assigned fund balance is $23.2 million. So you're above the recommended 75 days that TEA recommends. Now, as far as your general fund revenues are concerned, they totaled $82.9 million, with property taxes making up 64% or $52.9 million. Last year, property tax revenue in the general fund for M&O was $42.8 million. With the values increasing, you'll see an increase in property taxes. Now, there's always an inverse relationship with state aid or your foundation school program. The total of that was $20.8 million this year, or 25%, but last year was $28 million. You still made a little bit more in property taxes, but still you collect more taxes, and it impacts your state aid with that relationship the way it is and the state funding formula. Your federal revenue is only $1.7 million, with the bulk of that being school health and related services, or SHARs. And then you have other state aid, which is $3.5 million, which has to do with the TRS on behalf contributions that the state has made on behalf of the employees of Willis ISD. However, it's not a cash revenue, but you still have to recognize it, and then you offset with a corresponding expenditure. Total expenditures totaled $81.6 million, and out of that, 78% of all expenditures, or $63.5 million, is related to payroll. And just within that $63.5 million, $42 million, or 66% of all payroll, is related to instruction and related services. Now, overall, not just looking at payroll, $45.3 million is for instruction and related services. So again, $42.2 million of that 45 is payroll. When we look at the orange portion of the pie, $5.8 million, or 7%, is instruction and school leadership. And then when we look also at your general administration, it is at 4%. So you want to be under 8%. and that's what TEA uses. They'll aggregate other administrative costs, but general administration needs to be under 8% as well in aggregate with the other costs. But those are the bulk. You are where you need to be with instruction and related services at the 55%. Anywhere between 55 and 60% is what we see as a norm. Now if we look at your assigned and unassigned fund balance, again, evaluating those two items because of the way TEA evaluates it, you'll see that your fund balance has increased from 2019. It continued to increase into 2021 and 22. It plateaued and it decreased slightly into 23. And you'll also see because your expenditures also increased in 23. Still, just as far as financial health goes, again, the audit is not to determine if you're healthy or not, but if you were not, we'd be discussing that here tonight. And we know that that $23 million in comparison to $81.6 million equates to 103 days as shown in the previous slides. So it's still above that 75-day target that TEA gives you. Any questions for me?
Thank you and great job, Gary.
Great job, Gary, and your team, great job.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the district's annual financial audit for the year ending August 31st, 2023.
We have a motion by Mr. Carson, a second by Ms. Traylor. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item B, discuss, consider approval of 2024-2025 Willis ISD calendar.
All right, thank you. Thank you, President Hagemeyer, Board, Mr. Crow, Carol, and happy Board Appreciation Month. I want it to be noted that I was the first presenter to mention that tonight.
Thank you.
I know you guys do a lot of work behind the scenes, and we do appreciate you. So, I want to give you a quick rundown of how we developed our 25. Thank you, Mr. Crow. He's always taking care of me. All right, so I wanted to quickly go through kind of the process we went through to develop this this calendar for next year. On the first slide we have here is just kind of an overview of what we saw. We got a lot of feedback from a lot of different groups. First and foremost, we developed a survey questions for parents and students and staff. Cabinet and IT&L gave some feedback on that. And then we got the feedback for those questions, took those questions, kind of drafted them and gave them to our district executive, our educational improvement committee. They gave some feedback on it, and then we decided these are the questions that we're going to send out. A lot of it was based on previous calendars, time frames, and things that we've done. DEIC decided this is what the questions should be and approved them, and then we sent a survey to parents, students, and staff. And this is, I think, the first time we sent it to students regarding this. And it was mainly about those questions that we'll get into here in just a second, of what the calendar, what key components the calendar should encompass. After that, we developed 2 draft calendars for review. Got feedback from DEIC. And then we sent 2 calendar options, which we'll look at those results in a second, and then we're here tonight with those results. So some key feedback on this was the actual questions. The questions were what affiliation Willis ISD, as you can see there, the parent is blue, student is red, and 11% turnout with student is pretty good. Employee was 20.9. We felt like it was important to make sure that they did note that they were employee and parent. So there's your people, and then in that, the first question was a start date. We had 2 choices for start date. One of them was August 7th. We chose Wednesday. Historically, that would be done. And if you can see, it was a strongly disagree was the majority on that one right there. But as far as August 14th, we had a consensus there with around 70% that said either agree or strongly agree that we felt like school needed to start after August 14th. First semester should end before winter break. Got a lot of feedback this year. We just lived it. We're living it right now that the semester did go a little bit late and started the second semester and from last year's calendar. So we asked that question on here, do you feel like it's important for it to end at the winter break? And we had about 81% that said yes, we do. So the school year should end before Memorial Day. Historically, we have, and that feedback again was high and strongly agree. And then also we asked about the fall break. Didn't give specifics about it. Said, did you appreciate the fall break that was in there? And again, a majority of them, at 75%, did say that we did like the fall break. So with that information that we gathered right there, we took 3 possible calendar options that were developed using some team feedback from Cabinet, ITNL, other people, and came up with 3 possible calendar options. Took those to DEIC, had them look those over, give some feedback. We worked them in groups, and they looked at it and they narrowed it down to 2. And those 2 that they narrowed it down to were the ones that we actually sent to the community for feedback. So the ones that actually went to the community, as I think we'll get into later on, had spring break as March 10th through the 14th. Well, Conroe ISD decided that they wanted to move theirs. Originally, Conroe ISD sent out like 8 calendars for their community to get feedback on. Half of them had spring break March 10th through the 14th. The other half had the 17th through the 21st. So they've done the second week of March like us. They decided the 2 that they were going to finally send to their community had the 17th through the 21st. It was a big impact on our community, we felt like. So looking at that did change as a recommendation later on. I'll explain why in just a second. So we got these 2. Here's the results from that survey. And it was just one simple question that we asked the community. Well, 2, what is your affiliation again? We did not send this one to students for any reason, we felt like the students needed to give us, we wanted to hear from them about some of those end and start dates on there. And the students did quote, they did want 4-day weeks. That was a comment that was spread throughout there. So probably not for the right reason, but they did put that on there. But we had a pretty good turnout for that, and it was 68.5 to 31 for calendar A. On calendar A, if we go back to this, the biggest difference between calendar A and calendar B really falls in fall break. And if you look at fall break, you can really see it on that screen right there. The difference between A and B was we had a full week for students in A and 3 days for students in B. Very similar to what we have here. Our attendance rate during those 2 days during this fall break was not great. Anytime you have a short week like that, it does impact attendance rates. So the majority of them wanted that full week. The other change in there, if you'd see in there, is we had in the B a staff development day after spring break, and then an additional staff development day on Valentine's Day, where we had to get those 2 staff development days added in somewhere. The reason for that is when you add in a fall break, teachers have to work 187 days. And when we take away student days, we also take away those teacher days too. So we have to make those up somewhere. You'll see some additional staff development days throughout the year, which is a good thing, but we do need to get to 187 days for teachers. Both calendars had 171 student days, pretty well balanced first semester to second semester, which impacts secondary schools primarily. A little bit heavier on A, or a little bit shorter in the fall semester because of the October break, but it balanced out pretty well, at least reasonably. So the question we asked there, we got the feedback. So A was what the community and the staff and the parents really wanted. So we got that late information after we decided on these calendars and the survey sent out. So we wanted to send one more survey out, quick little survey, had some pretty good 518 responses. This was just to staff, and it mainly impacts our staff. Our staff agreed that moving the spring break from the 10th to 14th through the 17th through the 21st would be what they would recommend because of Conroe. And having to share in the same one as us. So we share employees, we share kids, we share an athletic and UIL district. So it's important that we match that up. So that was the feedback that they gave us on that. And after all that and that feedback, what we would recommend as a district is calendar A for the board to consider. And we are asking for action on that tonight. And I'll certainly entertain any questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I make the motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the 2024-2025 Willis ISD school calendar.
We have a motion by Ms. Traylor, a second by Mr. Perry. Is there any further discussion?
If you look at the calendar and on the fall break, and I mean, obviously this one's done, but moving forward next year, I'd be interested to see what the staff has to say about working those 2 days during the fall break. because that's hard on them. They've gotta find, you know, for the ones that have kids, they've gotta find places. And to me, I think we could move those staff development days to another day. I mean, cause they need a break too, and, you know, they finish early on Friday, but Saturday, Sunday, that whole entire week, I think would be something, I'd be interested to see what their input would be, on looking at a full week instead of them having to come back that day.
Absolutely, we'll include that in that, with the asking the staff what they thought about that next year, sure.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item C, discuss, consider approval of staff development minutes waiver for 2024-2025 school year.
So this is a quick little agenda item here. We can go to TEA and ask for a waiver for 5, it turns out to be 5 days, it's about 2,100 minutes. So those 5 staff development days in there, those won't actually count against our minutes. We can include those in our minutes in our calendar. So we are asking for your approval to request the waiver from TEA to allow for 2,100 minutes, which turns out to be 5 staff development days. It doesn't go against our total number of minutes.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the staff development waiver for the 2024-2025 school year.
Have a motion by Mr. Carson, a second by Mr. Perry. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item D, discuss, consider approval of purchase over $50,000 district safety project, multi-campus ballistic film.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Mr. Crowe. This project is from House Bill 3, which was a safety for ballistic film and fencing and security for the districts. The district has received a grant for this purpose for the House Bill 3 grants. This one particular one is for ballistic film. The districts, we sent out invitations to bid. We use the cooperative process. We sent out invitations to 3 contractors. If you look in your board book, you'll see where we stand on that. We sent the three subcontractors. We went directly to sole source because that's what this is. It's a sole source from ballistic film. We received 2 bids out of the 3 invitations that we sent requests for. We received 2 bids. The 2 bids are listed in your book. And we selected Epic to be the selected awarded bid.
Ms. Jones?
I move that the board accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the purchase of $269,966.76 from Epic Solar Control from the 2023-2025 Safety and Facilities Enhancement Safety Grant Cycle 1. I really want to thank somebody worked real hard on this, and she's in here tonight. I think I got to find her back here. You did an outstanding job. I know you was Miss Ballard. I know that ain't your last name no more. I want to thank you for getting this done. These kids, the safety is a big thank you to this board, this district, so thank you very much.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item E, discuss, consider approval of purchase over $50,000 district safety project, multi-campus bidirectional amplifier system.
Yes, this was the same safety grant that Ms. Megan applied for us, and we did receive the safety grant. This is a new BDA system in 6 existing campuses of the district have. We sent out invitations to bid to 3 contractors to bid this project, and this is a sole source to the subcontractor directly because that is the scope of the work. We received 2 bids out of the 3 invitations that we sent out. You'll see the sign-in sheets, you'll see the budgets, you'll see their proposals, and you'll see their dollar amounts of who solicited or who submitted the proposals. The district has selected Pyrotech System to be the awarded vendor.
Mr. Mr. Carson.
I move that the board accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the purchase of $382,358 from Pyrotech Systems from the 2022-2025 School Safety Standards Formula Grant.
We have a motion by Mr. Carson, a second by Mr. Jones. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item,
Before you move on, Megan, what did you just tell me tonight that we disqualified for? Megan?
For the grant,
Yeah.
all of it has to be facility related, so film, fencing, BDA systems, and once we can say that all of our instructional facilities are within minimum compliance, we are allowed to move outside of that chapter 61 of the Commissioner's Rule of School Safety.
Again, she's keeping an eye on all this for us and came up with that for us tonight as well.
okay.
I just wanted to mention that.
Item F will be tabled. Item G, discuss, consider the reclassification of a position within the district. Mr. Whitman.
Thank you, Mr. President, Board, Mr. Crowe, Carol. We're going to keep with the Megan theme. We're coming to ask for the reclassification of the grant program coordinator position to a director of federal programs, compliance, and grants. This mid-year change is warranted, of course, because of the increase in title funds, title programs, and the grant opportunities. Of course, with that comes some very strict compliance structures. As you've already heard, she's already done a great job, that position's done a great job of bringing in some grant monies, and it will be funded, the position will be funded with grant monies as well.
Perfect. Ms. Traylor?
I make the motion that we accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the reclassification of the position listed above.
We have a motion by Ms. Traylor, a second by Mr. Carson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Congratulations. Okay, now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also like to mention, as you know, John Valiente has been serving as interim assistant superintendent for ITNL, and told the board tonight that we're taking off the title of interim and making him the assistant superintendent of ITNL for
Congratulations, we appreciate it. Item H, consider possible action and possible adoption of order calling school building bond election.
Well, I can present it, or they can come back and present again, but, you heard the work that they've done, that the committee's done, it's been unbelievable. They've spent hours upon hours in research, and, sometimes I feel like that I was in a meat grinder, but that's okay, because that's what we needed to be able to do, is provide them the information that they needed to make a good decision. And they presented it to you tonight, that you call a bond election for May 4th, with 4 propositions on it. And, I don't have them memorized right here in front of me. John, Garrett, you got them memorized?
It's just over $218 million for all props. Prop A is $102 million. Prop for the high school and the transportation facility and some infrastructure. Prop B is for the stadium and athletic complex. Prop C is for the natatorium, just under $20 million, I think $19.6 million. And Prop B is the student activity center at $27 million. The stadium was $68.8 million.
Awesome. Mr. Carson.
I make the motion that we follow the superintendent's recommendation and adopt the order calling school building bond election to be held May 4th, 2024.
We have a motion by Mr. Carson, a second by Mr. Perry. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item I, discuss and consider approval of joint election agreements and election services contracts with Montgomery County and San Jacinto County for May 4th, 2024 bond election.
And again, we have to get this approved by them, to have the bond election. I don't know if it's Miss Carol, Sweet Carol, or Boss Carol. All the above has been working with them and presented this to them for your approval.
I move that we follow the superintendent's recommendation and the board approve the joint election agreements and election services contract with Montgomery County and San Jacinto County for the May 4th, 2024 bond election.
We have a motion by Mr. Carson and a second by Ms. Lagway. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Board member comments. Yes, sir.
I had the pleasure of being able to sit in with a couple of the long-term planning committee meetings and being heavily involved in them the last several years. Y'all did one heck of a job. I seen they were really working hard to get these numbers where they wanted them to present. I heard them in there. I was very proud of all of them. They did an outstanding job. They really did.
Thank y'all so much.
Totally agree. Future business meetings.
Okay, we have a future meeting on February 14th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. That's a significant day, in case you guys didn't realize that.
Hagemeyer House doesn't do gifts, so we're good. All right, adjournment of the meeting. Mr. Williams.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Mr. Carson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.